Good afternoon. Welcome to today's meeting of the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure. Mr. Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Brown-May. Assemblyman Carter. Present. Assemblywoman Dickman. Assemblywoman Gallant. Here. Assemblyman Gurr. Assemblywoman Kasama. Assemblywoman Marzola. Here. Assemblywoman Miller. Here. Assemblyman Miller. Here. Assemblywoman Peters. Here. Assemblywoman Summers-Armstrong. Chair Watts.
And I am present. We have all members present. We have a quorum. Thanks everyone for joining us today. For anyone wishing to provide testimony, please sign in at the table in the back. Provide a business card if you have one. When testifying, please remember to clearly state and spell your name and say your name for the record every time before you speak. Members, we will have public comment at the end of today's meeting. We'll ask anyone wishing to make public comment to limit their remarks to 2 minutes. Anyone wishing to provide testimony or public comment by phone can find the call-in information to do so on our agenda, which is also publicly posted on the Nevada Legislature's website. With that, we have a work session with 3 bills, and we have 2 bills to be heard today. We are going to begin with our work session. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Stinisbeck, our policy analyst, to lead us through the work session document. We'll begin with the work session on Assembly Bill 290.
Jan Stinisbeck with the Research Division of the LCB. 290, Senate Bill 290 was sponsored by Assemblywoman Brown-May et al. Heard in this committee on March 21st. The bill authorized under certain circumstances a dealer and purchaser to enter into a written return agreement to cancel a vehicle sale. There were 2 proposed amendments to the bill, both by Assemblywoman Brown-May. They're attached to the work session document. The amendments remove the time restriction to enter into written return agreements to cancel a vehicle sale, adds a time limit to returning the fees collected following the cancellation of the sale of a vehicle, removes the time restriction to submit application for a certificate of title from a DMV in connection with the cancellation of a sale, removes the authority to request a refund of the taxes collected by the dealer and responsibility of the Department of Taxation to refund all taxes, provides for expedited and non-expedited applications for a certificate of title, provides that a prohibition against selling a vehicle that is the subject of a cancellation of a sale until a dealer receives the certificate of title applies if a dealer has applied for a certificate of title, and lastly clarifies that the provisions of the bill should not be construed to prohibit the DMV from reviewing an application for a certificate of title for accuracy and completeness and conducting necessary research prior to issuing a certificate of title. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stinisbeck. Members, any questions on this work session document? Assemblywoman Dickman.
So as I understand it, these amendments have taken off that huge fiscal note, and I know we're not supposed to be talking money in this committee, so I will vote for the bill because I like the policy, but I want to reserve if it goes to ways. Thanks.
Thank you. I don't know, Vice Chair, if you want to respond to that.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the comments. You'll note, as Mr. Stinisbeck just reviewed, that the authority is removed to request a refund of taxes, which eliminates the taxation. Fiscal note that was attached, and a significant amount of work has been done with the Department of Motor Vehicles relative to their fiscal note as well. So I feel like all of our interested parties have come to consensus on the policy of this bill, and I'm happy to talk that through.
Thank you, and I appreciate your remarks, Assemblywoman, that this is not the fiscal committee, this is the policy committee. So while those are important considerations, those are meant to be addressed in the fiscal committee once referred, and then ultimately once the bill heads to the floor. So we are trying to focus on the policy aspects as much as possible in our considerations within this committee. Members, any additional questions on this bill? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 290.
So moved.
I've got a motion from Vice Chair Brown-May. Do I have a second? Second from Assemblyman Miller. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Motion passes unanimously. I'll assign that floor statement to Vice Chair Brown-May. Next, we'll move on to Assembly Bill 302.
Jan Stinisbeck with the Research Division of the LCB. For the record, Assembly Bill 302 was sponsored by Assemblyman Backus and heard in this committee on March 23rd. The bill requires the Director of the Department of Motor Vehicles to issue limited purpose identification cards to be used to provide identification for the purpose of challenging the accuracy or sufficiency of information related to certain records of criminal history relating to sex offenders or offenders convicted of a crime against children. Thank you, Chair. There's no amendments to this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions on this bill? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to do pass Assembly Bill 302. I have a motion from Assemblywoman Dickman. I have a second from Assemblywoman Peters. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. I'll assign that floor statement to Assemblywoman Backus. Thank you very much for your work on this. And with that, we will move to the last item on our work session for today, Assembly Bill 316.
Jan Schlinsbeck with the Research Division for the record. Assembly Bill 316 was sponsored by Assemblyman Miller, heard in this committee on March 28th, and revises the penalty for the unlawful possession of a certain number of unregistered vehicles unfit for use to be punishable by a civil penalty of not more than $100 for each day of the violation. There is one proposed amendment to the bill by Assemblyman Miller. It's attached to the work session document, and authorize a local authority to adopt an ordinance prohibiting the possession of more than 2 unregistered vehicles unfit for use, and provides that if a local authority adopts such an ordinance, a person committing a prohibited conduct shall be subject to the provisions of the local ordinance, including any civil penalty, rather than statute. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Stinisbeck. Members, are there any questions on Assembly Bill 316? Seeing none at this time, I'd accept a motion to amend and do pass AB 316. I've got a motion from Vice Chair Brown-May, a second from Assemblyman Miller. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Please raise your hand. I've got a nay from Assemblyman Gurr. With that, the motion does pass, and I will assign that floor statement to Assemblyman Miller. All right, thank you, members. That concludes our work session. I do know that we will have some members that need to go attend to some other business, so feel free to do so as necessary. With that, we will move on to our bill hearings for the day. I'm going to take the items out of order. We're going to begin with Assembly Bill 426, and then we will hear Assembly Bill 425. So with that, I'll open the hearing on Assembly Bill 426, which revises provisions governing special event advertising. Welcome, Mr. Gillis. Whenever you are ready, take your time. You can introduce yourself for the record and begin.
Thank you, Chairman Watts. Vice Chair and the committee members, appreciate you having me here today. For the record, my name is Scott Gillis with the Griffin Company. Here today representing the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. In the Grant Sawyer building, we have Caroline Bateman, General Counsel of LVCVA, who will be presenting the specifics of the bill today. But I just want to note before I turn it over to Ms. Bateman, note for the committee that she's going to be presenting the mock-up that you should have in front of you of the original bill that was introduced. With the changes in the mock-up, the bill is now very short mechanically, but it is a very significant bill for LVCVA. The sponsors that are will be coming to Southern Nevada for large events in the coming years. And with that, I'll turn it over to Caroline.
Thank you. Go ahead whenever you're ready, Ms. Bateman.
Good afternoon, Chair Watts, members of the committee. Caroline Bateman for the record, General Counsel for the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. Thank you for the opportunity to present AB 426 for your consideration. Prior to presenting, I would like to thank Chair Watts and Speaker Yeager for your support and your guidance through this process. Thank you to LCB staff, specifically Kristen Roberts, Connie Barlow, and the very great Brian Fernley. Director Tagliati and his entire team over at the Department of Public Safety, as well as Director Larkin Thomason and her team over at the Department of Transportation, and finally the staff of Clark County for their input and recommendations through this process. NRS 484B313 provides a general prohibition on commercial advertising on highways. Subsection 5 of that statute provides 3 exceptions to the general prohibition, and those exceptions allow for advertising on monorail stations, on benches and shelters of public mass transportation, and on touchdown structures. AB 426, as outlined in the mock-up amendment, is a proposed 4th exception to the general prohibition. It is an enabling statute that will allow public authorities with jurisdiction over highways, namely counties and cities, to permit organizers of special events to affix and maintain commercial advertising for a period of up to 14 days on highways. The terms and conditions, or the advertising from these event organizers will be subject to terms and conditions that the public authorities will establish in a written agreement, including any permit or licensing fees that the public authorities deem appropriate. The advertising cannot constitute a hazard, and they cannot prevent the safe use of the highway by the public. A special event under AB 426 is a sporting event, a concert, or a similar type of event which will provide an economic impact of an anticipated economic impact of $250 million or more to the jurisdiction in which the event will occur. The economic impact must be certified by the applicable county fair and recreation board, and the event must be designated as a special event by that governing public authority that has jurisdiction over the pertinent highways, and the event organizers must obtain an event permit for that special event. A highway under NRS 484B.313 means the entire width of any public right-of-way when that right-of-way is open to vehicular traffic in whole or in part. Highway as used does not include interstate highways such as I-15 or the I-80, as those highways are governed by federal law. It also does not include highways that are part of the state's major transportation network or primary transportation network, or any other highways under the jurisdiction of the Department of Transportation. The LVCVA requests your support of AB 426. It is important to us. It will provide us with a tool as we not only work to keep, but also to draw in new special impactful events to the state. It will also provide a means for us to offset costs that the LVCVA and the public authorities related incur in hosting these special events. Again, appreciate the committee's consideration of AB 426. I'm happy to answer any questions along with Mr. Gillis.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gillis, would you like to say anything else?
Thank you, Chairman Watts. Just before we jump into questions, I just want to clarify on the record, there's currently an existing exemption to the advertising prohibition in 484B.313 for the pedestrian bridge touchdown structures on the strip. Those existing touchdowns, the existing touchdown structure exemption is found in 44B 3.313 subsection 5C. Just want to clarify for the record that the new exemption in this bill, AB 426, is not intended in any way to supersede or disrupt those existing advertising agreements in any way that would result in the touchdown structure advertisements being removed or replaced.
Thank you very much for that clarification. With that, we'll open it up to questions from members of the committee. I believe we'll start with Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Chairman, I'm sorry. I need to No, I need to just get myself together. Sorry about that, Chair Watts. Thank you very much, sir, for the presentation. Thank you, ma'am, in Las Vegas. It's good to see that we are thinking broadly about bringing income into the county. I know that we need it. These events, although they're fabulous and sound great, really do a lot of, they take a lot of work and resources to prepare for it within our jurisdiction. I'm concerned about something that we've been talking a lot about in judiciary, which is sex trafficking. And we know that these large events draw that type of behavior to our communities. I would like to know if the LVCVA has thought about using or would consider amending or your agreements with these folks to require that a portion of whatever advertising they put up includes information about sex trafficking and prostitution not being legal in our county, and then also using some of the funds to support the organizations in our community that have to deal with the carnage of what happens with sex trafficking.
Thank you, Scott Gills. For the
Caroline
record,
Bateman.
through the chair, I'm going to defer to Ms. Bateman in Southern Nevada. Apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Gillis. Caroline Bateman for the record. And Assemblywoman, in regards to the special events that occur, the LVCVA is partnering with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, and there are initiatives in place relating to sex trafficking regarding these special events. We would love the opportunity to meet with you as well as members of our operations team and with Metro to outline these initiatives that we currently have in place, and hopefully those will address your concerns.
Thank you, ma'am, for your response, but I'm more interested in something that is codified and required, not an initiative that could come and or go, depending on who is either in charge of LVCVA or in charge of the police in our community. I think there's an opportunity here for there to be a set aside, and I think considering what we are facing in our community, I would like to see it solid, yeah. So what is your response or your thoughts about that, please?
Caroline Bateman for the record. Thank you for the question, Assemblywoman. This is a matter that I will take back to our team and consult with you and hopefully reach out to you and discuss in more detail.
Thank you. And may be the best if you can just share some follow-up information on your current initiatives, as well as some background on kind of how the advertising revenues, particularly related to this bill, are allocated and dedicated. With that, we'll move on to others that have questions. All right. Seeing none. Thank you both very much for your presentation. With that, I'll ask you to step back and we will move into testimony in support of Assembly Bill 426. Anyone wishing to provide testimony in support, either in Carson City or Las Vegas, please come forward. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Watts and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Nick Schneider, representing the Vegas Chamber. We're in support of this bill as it allows further economic development along our Las Vegas Strip, which is one of the largest revenue generators in the state, as well as provides for opportunities for more of these massive projects like, the impending Super Bowl or the Grand Prix. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Seeing nobody else coming forward in Carson City or Las Vegas at this time, Broadcast Production Services, can we see if we have anyone wishing to provide testimony in support of Assembly Bill 426 by phone?
If you would like to testify in support of AB 426, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
All right. Thank you very much. With that, we'll move into testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 426. Anyone wishing to provide testimony in opposition, either here in Carson City or in Las Vegas, please come forward. Seeing none at this time, BPS, can we see if we have anyone wishing to provide testimony in opposition by phone?
If you would like to testify in opposition to AB 426, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. And finally, anyone wishing to provide testimony in the neutral position on Assembly Bill 426, either here in Carson City or in Las Vegas, please come forward. Seeing none at this time, BPS, can we see if we have anyone on the phone lines?
If you would like to testify neutral for AB 426, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Gillies, Ms. Bateman, any closing remarks? I'm seeing no. So thank you very much. With that, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 426. And with that, I will turn the gavel over to the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I will now open the hearing on Bill number 425, which revises the provisions governing net metering. And Chair, you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I am Howard Watts, representing Assembly District 15 in Clark County, and it is my pleasure to open up the presentation for Assembly Bill 425. This body has done tremendous work over recent years to expand the deployment of solar energy across our communities, including revising our net metering laws in 2017 and enacting the expanded solar access program in 2019. While all of those initiatives are fantastic, you know, one of the difficulties that we run into is trying to make sure that access is available to everyone. This was one of the things that that this body did some work to try and address in 2019, because ownership of the property is a big issue, and so deploying solar power to rental communities and particularly making sure that those benefits can reach the tenants in multifamily living. It is a difficult thing to address, and at its core, that's what Assembly Bill 425 is seeking to do. One of the things that made me interested in providing a venue to discuss this concept is also harnessing federal funding, which has been a recurring theme throughout this session. So the recent federal infrastructure laws, there is on solar projects a 30% tax credit available on those projects. But for certain federally qualified affordable housing, the tax credit increases from 30% to 50%. So essentially, the federal government is covering fully half the cost of these projects. And so this initiative is meant to really focus in on affordable housing projects and help incentivize those projects, incentivize the development of renewable resources in the development of those projects, and then 3, provide additional affordability benefits to the residents in those facilities by creating a mechanism where the energy generated and the benefits with that can be distributed to the folks living in those facilities. We passed Senate Bill 448 last session that took the first step to help expand access to solar power in multifamily units. And I am hoping that we can use this measure to help take another step towards expanding that and again, delivering utility bill affordability powered by clean energy to those who need it the most. So with that, I would like to turn it over to my co-presenter, Mr. Lassiter with Sunrun, to provide some additional background and information about the bill. Afterwards, we'd be glad to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you today about AB 425. As the chair said, my name is Stephen Lassiter. I'm a director at the solar company called Sunrun. We're the largest provider of solar energy systems on federally regulated affordable housing across the country. Appreciate the chairman's inviting me to speak about this important legislation and our experience working on these projects outside of Nevada to date, and how we partner with affordable housing providers installing solar that benefits them and, critically, also the low-income tenants who live in those buildings. A common topic, as the chair said, was maximizing and using the new federal funding that's available, particularly from the Inflation Reduction Act, or IRA. AB 425 does just that. Billions of new dollars are available for solar and solar on affordable housing in particular. And as the chair said, the federal government, via new tax credits, will essentially pay for half the cost of solar on federally regulated affordable housing. This funding will be allocated on a competitive basis. You have to apply to the U.S. Treasury to be able to use the tax credits. And without AB 425, most solar projects in the state on affordable housing will not be economically viable, and Nevada will not receive this new funding. Our solar projects on affordable housing in other states have saved tenants an average of $44 a month on their utility bills, and these are folks who obviously benefit from those utility bill savings the most. While some solar projects have been installed on affordable housing in Nevada, most affordable housing is not eligible to participate in the state's premier solar program, the net metering program. That is because of a technical issue that AB 425 solves. Today, only apartment buildings with one electric meter, where the landlord pays the utility bill, are eligible to participate in the net metering program. AB 425 would allow only federally regulated affordable housing buildings with individual electric meters for each unit, where each tenant pays their own utility bill, to also participate in the state's net metering program. And as I said, only narrowly defined types of federally regulated affordable housing would be eligible to participate. This is a narrow expansion. This builds off of SB 448, the large energy bill from last session, which the legislature passed overwhelmingly. This is how it would work. An affordable housing provider would install solar. The system would meet most of their need for electricity for common areas, lighting, and things like that, and shared spaces. And it would also generate sufficient electricity for tenants of that building to also benefit. Whatever electricity the system generates would be split equitably among tenants in the building based on the square footage of their unit, not based on how much power they consume individually. And it would be applied to their utility bill as bill credits, just the same way that net metering works for all other participants across the state. AB 425 will increase solar access and equity, especially for low-income Nevadans. They are the only beneficiaries of this legislation, in addition to owners of affordable housing. And I also want to address what the legislation would not do. This is not what's called community solar. It's only solar installed on site, on the roofs of affordable housing, and the only people who can participate in the program are the building owner or the people who live in that building. It's also not unlimited net metering. It's only for narrowly defined types of federally regulated affordable housing, and we anticipate this law would support the construction of about 10 projects each year with an average size of 150 kilowatts, the equivalent of about 20 single-family homes. This concludes my presentation. Thank you again to the committee and the chair and vice chair for considering this legislation, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Howard Watts for the record. I just will make sure that want to make sure that members are aware there is an amendment. Most of the language in that amendment is clarifying and just tightening up some definitions and making sure that all the language is conforming with some of the existing provisions within net metering. I think Mr. Lassiter did a good job of explaining the mechanics of how the policy should work. So in the interest of time, we're ready to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you for your presentation. We do have a couple of members with questions. We'll start with Assemblyman Carter.
Thank you for the presentation. And my concerns are regarding and as Chairman Watts has talked about, we've worked hard, it has been worked hard at correcting it, about the regressive nature of the net metering in Nevada, and about how that recent studies in California have shown that net metering still has massive problems with being regressive and costing ratepayers the most who can afford it the least. And so I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about if we've stamped out the predatory practices that our state was preyed upon by all of these solar companies that flocked here a decade ago and left people with marginally operative systems and with encumbrances on their titles. And finally, what is the mechanism to be sure that these savings flow down to who we're talking about and don't just increase the bottom line for institutional investors that are buying up housing projects like this? And thank you.
Thank you very much for those questions, Assemblyman. Howard Watts for the record. There's a lot in that. I'll do my best to try and get through those. So, first, the question about kind of the overall fairness of the net metering program to other ratepayers. We have a lot of different public policies, and the impacts of those public policies will benefit some and then are socialized among other ratepayers. Here's what I will say. One, in 2017, when we kind of settled the net metering regime and then the tranches and the rates, this doesn't touch any of that at all. So we're still operating under that regime. We're at the bottom tranche as far as the net metering rates. And those are still, that kind of deal essentially was made, I think, for at least a period of 20 years. And so this is operating within that. Two, again, you heard a little bit about the capacity of this. And again, there's no limit in that current tranche. So if folks have the means or availability on single family residences, they can keep building out tons of net metering. What this is trying to do is make sure that folks that live in apartments have a chance to get some of those projects and some of those benefits too, but focusing it really narrowly on affordable housing so that the overall total potential capacity of net metering programs is being expanded, but I think it is a fairly modest expansion in what the potential impact across the system can be. So I'll just say that without getting into a debate about quantifying exactly what those impacts are. I do think that, again, it's just important to note that this operates within that existing system. It expands who can participate, but I think it is fairly narrow in how it would be applied, and that therefore any potential impact is going to be relatively small. To your point about consumer practices, it's something I've actually been talking with other folks in the solar industry. There are a range of actors, there are a range of practices. Some are really upstanding, some are less so. I have had people come to my door and make very interesting claims about things that the Nevada Legislature or Clark County have done, and how great it's going to be if I let them put solar on my roof. They've even come after I got solar panels installed, which is very interesting. So I've been in conversations with the industry. There's been some conversations with the Attorney General about their ability to go after bad actors with the Contractors Board, and I remain open. Again, that's not covered right here. There were some consumer protections that were also addressed in 2017. And I think there's either on the policy and or enforcement side the need for some additional work to be done. And if there is policy that needs to be done, I welcome all suggestions on how we can do that and make sure that this is done in the most responsible way possible. And finally, I believe you asked about how do we make sure that the benefits actually get to folks. And so this is one where I will turn it over to Mr. Lassiter if I miss anything, but I will note that in section 12, I believe it is, of the bill, but on page 9, sub 10, this directs the commission to adopt regulations relating to this program. And essentially, so there's some things related to the owner, and then you'll see in sub B, a provision authorizing the allocation by the owner in consultation with, so the owner of the system and the property where it's located, the financial benefits of the electricity, and then you'll see under B, these additional paragraphs. One, in the case of individually metered tenant units, net metering credits are allocated among the tenant units in a manner that is equitable and in proportion to the size of each unit measured in square feet. And then 2, in the case of master metered buildings, residents receive such financial benefits in the form of additional property, amenities, or services that are equitably accessible to all residents of the property. And then within that, an equitable allocation of the financial benefits of the electricity produced by the low-income housing shared net metering system to the occupants does not preclude an allocation to common area accounts. So basically, this is charging the Public Utilities Commission with undergoing a rulemaking process where the Bureau of Consumer Protection, consumer groups, everyone would be able to participate in that process and help develop clear regulations so that when a system is brought online, there is a guarantee that those benefits are going to be passed through to the customer. I think, one of the, and again, this is the challenge with a lot of multifamily policies, and ultimately a lot of times we just choose to do nothing because it's so challenging to manage. How do we get the benefits? Do those accrue to the person's utility bill? Are there impacts to rent as a result? But ultimately, again, I think you're looking at something that's going to be, there's going to be some federal government subsidies to help cover some of those costs, and the commission is going to be in charge of developing a structure for how this is, how these projects are reviewed, approved, and implemented to do as much as possible to make sure that financial benefits get to those in need. And the last thing I'd say is because this is these are specifically aimed at affordable housing units, again, they're already subject to some federal and state programs that are aimed at making those units affordable. And so I think a lot of those owners and operators are probably going to be more in a mindset of, hey, this is something, we don't want to take a loss on this, but hey, if we can make it even more affordable, because these are folks that need some assistance. So if we can offer reduced utility bills to folks, that helps make sure that they're going to be stable, that they're able to pay their rent on time and all of that. So that's kind of my response and thoughts on that.
Thank you for raising the questions and the concerns. I really do appreciate them and the opportunity to address them. The only thing I'd add in terms of ensuring benefits, in addition to the language that the chair read from the bill, in order to use these new federal tax credits and be approved by the U.S. Treasury Department to use them, there's a requirement that tenants must benefit. So it's in federal law. It will, should this bill pass, it will also be in state law, and compliance will be on whoever owns and installs the system. And part of that compliance is surviving an IRS audit to prove that, yes, tenants are benefiting from these systems. In terms of consumer protection, like real issue, there are bad actors in the market. And if you were to go on the PUCN's website on the net metering page, right there on the top right is a consumer complaint hotline and email address where folks who have been taken advantage of can register it with the state to make sure that they're being treated fairly. In terms of tenant benefit, the tenants would not be paying any solar installer. The arrangement is with the solar installer and the building owner. And then tenants would simply receive credits on their utility bill. So they're not paying anything out of pocket for the solar. They're simply benefiting from the fact that these federal tax credits are going to pay for slightly larger systems than the building owner would have installed just for their own electric bill, so that those benefits can also be shared with tenants.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Dickman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the question. So I think that Mr. Lassiter said this would only, the only beneficiary is low-income housing, basically. But wouldn't Sunrun be a big beneficiary? And I just, I guess my real question is there any way this could end up costing people who don't have net metering, who don't have solar, but pay the energy companies? Is it going to cost them anymore?
I'll start with responding to that. Thank you for the question, Assemblywoman. Howard Watts for the record. Again, I think this is a little bit similar to the question that Assemblyman Carter raised around are there costs related to net metering that are borne by other customers? I will say there are baseline charges. I'm a net metering customer, but there's still baseline charges that I pay every month, regardless, even if my generation exceeds my usage. So there is still some skin in the game with some baseline charges that every net metering customer pays. Again, there is a question out there, and I would say it's a debate around what exactly that is in terms of potential impact to other customers. I do think there are also benefits that come from expanding the use of distributed energy resource generation throughout our community. However, kind of to the point that I made to the previous question, this all exists within the kind of existing structure for net metering. So again, every single family residence currently under the existing statute can deploy solar and get access to net metering. And if there's an impact to the other non-net metering customers, that's going to happen right now. So the goal of this legislation is that the benefits that customers do get from net metering, we want to make sure that folks that live in apartments can get some of that benefit too.
Thank you.
Since you mentioned Sunrun, committee member, if I may, yes, absolutely. Sunrun will benefit from installing these systems and partnering with affordable housing providers. There's a contract between us. It's called a power purchase agreement. If we were not able to benefit, we would not pursue these projects, of course, as any for-profit business that has to make payroll would appreciate. So yes, Sunrun would benefit. Anyone else in the market would also benefit who's installing these projects, in addition to affordable housing owners and the tenants who live there. And then on the impact to non-participating folks, I'd like to address that too. So today, the overall contribution of rooftop solar in terms of total electricity generated in the state is about 3%. And according to the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab and the U.S. Department of Energy, there can be impacts on the rates of non-participating net metering customers if that threshold is 10% or more. So if 10% or more of the state's electricity is coming from rooftop solar, yes, there can be rate impacts. Now that is at 3%, so it would have to more than triple for there to be a material impact on non-participating customers.
Howard Watts for the record, if I may, Madam Vice Chair. One other thing that I'd like to add is yes, certainly those that are doing installing would likely see some financial benefit. We have had some nonprofit solar installers operate in the state in the past, and so the one thing that I want to clarify is that while Sunrun has done this in other places and helped to develop the policy, there is nothing in this policy that excludes any renewable developer from participating in this system. So it could be Sunrun, it could be any other solar developer that exists here. Somebody new could get into it. So it is open for all to participate. And again, with some of the additional regulations, I guess, that come into place with affordable housing, you know, there are other opportunities, you know, for if folks want to guide kind of the standards related to who's able to participate. That's an option. But this legislation leaves it open to anybody, any existing or new entrant that wants to partner up with affordable housing to build these systems would be able to do so. So it's not exclusive to any particular company.
Thank you for clarifying that. Appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you. Next up, we'll go to Assemblywoman Peters. I will remind you, please state your name for the record when you speak. Thank you.
Sarah Peters for the record. You're welcome. It's been a long couple of weeks. Thank you for bringing this bill. This is very exciting, and we've been having conversations about how to do exactly this for at least the 3 sessions that I've been in this building. So I really appreciate the effort going on here. My question is related to the decision to distribute the benefits based on square footage. Can you tell us a little bit about why you decided on that factor rather than other factors?
Yeah, oh, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Stephen Lassiter with Sunrun, for the record. Apologies. That is how it's done in other states, and I think that's the fairest, most equitable way to allocate the benefits to all units in the building from the solar system on the roof. The credits that tenants will receive on their utility bills will not wipe out their total utility bill. They will still be paying a utility bill, but some fraction of it will be, taken care of from the bill credits that they receive from the solar system. But if you have an apartment dweller who's a real energy glutton and they're blasting their AC all the time, they are certainly still going to pay more than someone who makes a conscious effort to conserve power.
Thank you for the response. I'm thinking more about families, like a single income family with multiple children, right? And I know in my household, when it's bath day, it's a lot of hot water being used, right? Which probably not electricity in most situations, but in some, it's also, you have 2 teenage daughters and the blow dryer's running all the time. So I have questions about how we just socially think about equity standards, especially in the affordable living space, right? Like, how do we create non-regressive systems, and how do we address the factors that aren't really related to choice, right? Like, you can't, when you have multiple people, especially those who are dependent on you, or if you are caring for your mother and she's on a machine system for her health. There are opportunities where we can capture some little pieces like that potentially that maybe not this session, but I'd love to, in this space, explore more of how do we create equity in those decisions that are not real, or in those the life implications that are not truly decisions, like blasting the air conditioning beyond what your neighbors are blasting them. Madam Chair, I have one more question, if I may. Thank you so much. So we talked about the solar on the rooftop, right? Well, what happened? There's a lot of money out there for microgrid programs, which include battery storage. So what happens in a situation in which an apartment complex has the solar panels as well as a battery storage unit on the system before it goes onto the grid?
Howard Watts for the record. I'll turn over to Mr. Lassiter to talk about how energy storage may be incorporated into a project. And we'll note that, yes, rooftops, it's on site, so we all know that there's a lot of places with covered parking as well. So I think there's a lot of opportunities on the housing site for deployment of some of these resources. I just wanted to go back to your previous question and just appreciate and note that you're right. There's a lot of potential nuance when we look at these things. The difficulty is always, of course, in how do we craft a policy, and trying to get policy and equity to match up is a challenge. And so I think, Mr. Lassiter spoke to using square footage because in general, larger family, larger unit size. Again, we know it's not a one-to-one. We know there's a lot of different situations going on. And again, I think the goal of that was to say, hey, if somebody is is conserving, if we do it based on their energy use, then does that actually create an incentive to use more energy in some way, shape, or form? But I certainly understand some of the dynamics that you brought up, and have some experience with some of those myself. There are certain things that can dramatically change someone's energy usage profile that aren't exactly optional. So I just wanted to recognize that, and am definitely open to continuing conversations about some of those issues. Now I'll turn it over to Mr. Lassiter to discuss battery storage.
Stephen Lassiter with Sunrun for the record. Would love to talk about batteries anytime. So we're the largest installer of home batteries across the country. We're increasingly coupling them with the solar systems. And we can do something called a virtual power plant, where we can press a button at headquarters and thousands of home batteries discharge at the same time, kind of like a virtual power plant, providing benefit to the grid and all ratepayers. So the good news is that these federal tax credits from the Inflation Reduction Act, batteries are included. So you can include that 50% federal tax credit for the cost of the battery. And of course, the benefit of adding a battery to a multifamily housing building, should there be a grid outage, right? On the hottest day of the year, the utility's struggling to provide enough power, say there's rolling blackouts, that battery kicks in and can provide backup power to the building to withstand outages. And on our single-family homes, we can withstand multi-day outages, right? Because God willing, the sun will come up next day, recharge your battery, you can use your battery again that night. I'm consuming too much time, but one other thing we can do with batteries, and including on multifamily housing installations, is that when NV Energy sends out those messages saying, please conserve power, it's super hot, we're struggling to meet demand on the grid, we can help them by pressing that button, discharging the battery either to the building or directly to the grid, and help prevent rolling blackouts. And that's exactly what we did in California last September, where CAISO was on the brink of having to issue the command to start shutting down parts of the grid.
And Howard Watts for the record, I'll just note that, again, while there is some linkage, if those things are connected, batteries aren't directly connected to net metering, and so that's why there's not language specific to that. But nothing in this would require, but also would provide any barrier. So this, if enacted, the option of incorporating storage into those projects would be on the table if the developer and the property owner wanted to explore that.
Thank you. Next up, we have Assemblyman Miller.
Thank you. Kind of forgot that I had a question. I actually think it was addressed. But what I do want to say is, one, I appreciate a good dad joke, so slid in, the batteries included. I appreciated that greatly. But I do appreciate being able to, I have solar on my home, and I appreciate being able to figure out a strategy in which we can actually provide direct savings to folks who need it the most on their electricity or their power bills. And just for my clarification, because I believe it was addressed with Assemblywoman Peters' question, the way that the distribution to those folks is based on square footage at the moment. So it'll be a credit, a scale based on the square footage and size of their particular unit as to how much credit they'll get. That's correct?
Thank you for that question, Assemblyman. Howard Watts for the record. First of all, really appreciate your passion and energy for this issue. Additionally, yes, that is correct. And so it's essentially it's kind of essentially shares, right? And figuring out those shares would be done based on the square footage of the unit. And so then that's kind of put into proportion with the overall energy available from the system. And then based on the generation, that's how the share is kind of allocated out of that benefit to be credited against the individual unit's electrical bills.
Members, any other questions? Okay, I do have one, if you don't mind. You talked about the possibility of 10 projects each year. as a potential. Do we have any idea about what the anticipated size of those projects could potentially be, or how many affordable housing units that are federally regulated that would currently qualify for this program?
Stephen Lassner with Sunrun for the record. Thank you very much, Vice Chair, for the question. I do think in the, this is a market that largely does not exist today in Nevada, so it would take some time for folks to figure out the new law and regulations, also apply for the federal tax credits. So we do anticipate that in the next few years, 10 projects roughly each year would likely be constructed. The average size of those projects is obviously constrained by how much roof space is available on the federally regulated affordable housing. So it will really be, project by project. In other states, our average project size has been 150 kilowatts, and that's roughly the equivalent of 20 single-family homes. If you were to install, that's 7.5 kW on a single-family home. However much electricity can be generated from the project, as the chair said, will be equitably divided among however many units are in that building.
Howard Watts for the record. I just say, again, I appreciate Mr. Lassiter kind of providing, based on some of the experience elsewhere, some rough projections. Again, there's going to be some time to develop the regulations and get this even rolled out. We do want to try and do that quickly so we can take advantage of these tax credits while we know for sure that they are going to be in place. Ultimately, this would remain in place, and it all ultimately depends. So it depends on, again, folks coming in who have an interest, working with affordable housing owners and developers, and figuring out what something that pencils out and can provide benefits to everyone involved.
Thank you. This is certainly a supercharged and energizing topic. We do have additional 2 questions. First, we'll go to Assemblyman Miller, and then we'll go to Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong.
I imagine with it being Easter weekend, we could keep going and going and going and going in this committee today. Had to get my one in. But I'm curious, in 2019, we passed I was not here then, but the expanded solar access bill. Does this in any way affect that?
That's an excellent question. Thank you. Howard Watts for the record. No. So, and again, this just focuses on affordable housing. So there's going to be a whole bunch of other folks living in multifamily in apartments that they will not qualify under this, just to be completely upfront and honest. They do qualify to potentially get dedicated solar power and financial benefits potentially through the expanded solar access program, which exists. There is a low income element of the expanded solar access program, and again, because we're not going to get every unit covered, or it may be a while, folks can take advantage of the expanded solar access program. So there's still a whole bunch of people that'll be able to take advantage of that. We also have the Low Income Solar Energy Program, I believe, LICEP. That is an ongoing program. I believe it's around $300,000 a year to develop some projects. But again, this has the opportunity to complement and lead to more projects being developed. $300,000 is great, but that it doesn't go extremely far in project development. Additionally, expanded solar access program. I think over the next coming years, I think there's going to be, if I can remember off the top of my head, and I'm sure if the utility comes up, they'll correct me. I think around 10 projects, and I think that might be in each service territory. Right now, there's, I think, 1 project deployed in each service territory. So just to kind of provide a little bit of context around some of the other things that are other policies in this ecosystem. But I think that they all work together. They are all, in my opinion, relatively discrete and relatively small in scope, and so I think they all kind of chain together to ultimately expand access to these resources and their benefits across our community.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, and thank you so much, Chairman Watts, for this presentation. I'm just would like a little bit more clarity on the benefits. So in section, it's a big section. Let's see. Anyway, page 9, it talks about amenities and the benefits of the amenities. So if I'm reading this properly, and I would like you to clarify for me, is that the tenants may not see a reduction of their bill, but that the owner of the project could use this money for a shared exercise room. And then that could be where the benefit goes, and the tenant still would not see a reduction in their bill. Am I misreading that?
Great question, Assemblywoman. Howard Watts for the record. So there are two aspects to this that are on that page 9. One is, and again, so Mr. Lasser discussed this, we took our first steps towards allowing for net metering projects on multifamily units with SB 448, and that only covered master metered units. So those are units where there's only one energy meter on site, and they provide energy to all the tenants, and that's essentially kind of rolled into the rent because they don't know how much an individual unit is using, so they kind of aggregate that, and either they just kind of average it out and that's part of what folks pay, or it's something that's just kind of apportioned out to everybody on an ongoing basis. And then you have multifamily that has individual unit meters, and so in those places, each individual tenant is getting their own specific utility bill, and so Section 1 deals with those individually metered multifamily developments. And that's where, again, because we know individual customers are getting bills, that's where we're able to very specifically say this has to be distributed equitably, figuring out that share based on square footage, and then delivering that benefit straight to that person onto their utility bill. What this is saying is it's kind of building on SB 448 from last session, saying in a master metered situation, we still want them to be able to participate in that as well, but because those individuals aren't getting a utility bill, they need to demonstrate very clearly, again, so they don't try and get around some of the requirements that are in these laws. So they need to demonstrate very clearly how those benefits are going to reach customers. And again, they can propose, okay, well, we're going to do this based on unit size, and that's going to be how we kind of apportion out the benefits. And maybe they as the overall owner of the facility, they're going to be accruing those financial benefits from the renewable energy, and then they could provide additional amenities at no charge and would have to demonstrate that to say, hey, so what we're doing is that's how we're passing it on, is creating some new amenities that we're not going to charge for. Maybe it's a reduction in rent. There's a lot of different options, but they would have to demonstrate how they are going to make sure that those benefits do not stick at the top, but go down to the actual tenants. So that is the difference in why you were seeing kind of some different language.
All right, so it takes me a second, so just to clarify. Master meter. Owner must demonstrate that they are providing some reduced, a benefit with some reduced cost to the benefit of everybody in the building in an equitable manner based on the size of the unit. Individually metered unit, it goes towards the bill.
Howard Watts for the record. You nailed it.
Got it. Thank you. I'm supercharged today.
Okay, I think we are there. I think we're ready to hear testimony in support, opposition, and neutral of Assembly Bill 425. So please remember to clearly state and spell your name for the record and limit your testimony to 2 minutes. First, we'll start here in Carson City. Please fill in the chairs if you're here in support of Assembly Bill 425, and then we'll go down to Las Vegas. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Paige Barnes with the Ferrado Company, here today on behalf of Solar Energy Industries Association, also known as SEIA. We believe that this bill will expand the use of solar with the benefits going to our communities who need it most. Thank you for your consideration.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Brown-May and members of the committee. My name is Donna Laffey, and I'm here representing DREAM.org, here in support of AB 425. DREAM.org works to ensure that all communities benefit from the shift to a green economy, and that communities that have been systematically underinvested in maximize the benefits generated by the IRA. AB 425 would enable people who reside in low-income housing with individually metered units to participate in the net metering program and increase solar access and equity. We urge your support of 425 for a greener future and thank the sponsor for bringing this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Christy Cabrera-Georgeson, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Nevada Conservation League here in support of AB 425. All Nevadans should be included in the transition to a cleaner and healthier future, and this bill will make strides to do just that. With energy prices skyrocketing, it's critical that residents of low-income housing have the opportunity to access affordable and clean energy. This will help lower energy bills while reducing harmful climate emissions. Additionally, this bill will allow us to access some federal funds from the Inflation Reduction Act. We urge the committee's support, and thank you for your time.
Hi, Vice Chair and members of the committee. My name is Olivia Tanager. I'm the Environmental Justice Program Manager with the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada, also a member of the Nevada Environmental Justice Coalition. Both PLAN and the NEJC are proud to support Assembly Bill 425. At PLAN, we believe that everyone should have access to affordable living situations, from housing to utilities. The profits of utility companies should not be put above the prosperity of people. We know that community solar, including rooftop solar, is an important piece of ensuring a transition away from fossil fuels is equitable and benefits all Nevadans. As someone who lives in multifamily affordable housing here in Reno, I know what a struggle it can be to pay utility bills. My apartment does not have air conditioning, so we're reliant on window units in the summer, which are extremely expensive to run. Despite being someone who's extremely energy conscious, both for my wallet and because I care about the environment, our utility bill for a space that is under 700 square feet is often over $200 a month. People should not have to choose between paying rent, buying groceries, or paying their utility bills. As summers get increasingly hotter here in Nevada, the demands on our energy grid will only increase. Instead of utility companies raising our rates and building new gas plants, they should be investing money into finding alternatives to dirty, non-renewable fuel to power our homes, like solar. With the new federal funding available, this is a unique opportunity for Nevada to join other states and ensure that we take advantage of that funding to help residents of affordable housing here in Nevada. Please support Assembly Bill 425. Thank you.
Madam Vice Chair and members of the committee, my name is Jana Moan, and I'm the External Affairs Director for the Nature Conservancy in Nevada. The Nature Conservancy supports Assembly Bill 425. Climate change is the biggest threat to our mission of conserving the lands and waters on which all life depends, and we support policies that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions. AB 425 would expand the opportunity for more Nevadans to benefit from renewable energy generation where they live. We support this bill because it promotes the equitable distribution of climate mitigation opportunities and outcomes, including for those in low-income housing. Thank you to the bill proponents for bringing this forward, and thanks for hearing our support comment.
Vice Chair Brown-May, Chair Watts, and members of the committee, my name is Barry Levinson, B-A-R-I-L-E-V-I-N-S-O-N, a volunteer member of Sierra Club's Legislative Committee. On behalf of the club and our more than 30,000 members and supporters statewide, I'm speaking in support of AB 425. When I moved to Reno in 2020, I was shocked and dismayed by the lack of solar panels on the roofs. I soon learned that Nevada had just recently passed net metering bills in 2017 and 2019, and that the solar industry here was just beginning to boom. Being a homeowner, I was able to take advantage of the net metering policy and had solar panels installed on my roof just recently. Yay. I am now reaping the benefits of clean energy at a stable price. As we all know, Reno and Las Vegas are the two fastest warming cities in the country. Low-income residents bear the brunt of these effects on their health and well-being due to the high cost of cooling their homes. These residents spend a much higher percentage of their incomes on utilities. In other words, they have a higher energy burden. As a matter of fairness, environmental justice, and to increase clean energy use in Nevada, we need to extend the benefits of net metering to the lower income residents. AB 425 will provide net metered solar on low-income housing, allowing the residents and building owners to partake in the benefits of solar energy at a reasonable price. This will help shelter them from the inevitable increases in the price of electric power from our utility companies and reduce the state's greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuel power plants. AB 425 will help low-income Nevadans reduce their energy burden and participate in our clean energy future while helping our state meet its greenhouse gas reduction goals. For these reasons, we urge you to support this bill. Thank you very much.
Vice Chair and members of the committee, thank you for having me today. I'm Mark Fiorentino with the law firm of Kempfer Kroll. We represent the Nevada chapter of the American Institute of Architects, which submitted a letter of support for the bill, and it's on Nellis, and I'm here just to reinforce it and to make sure that you saw it and to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Brown May and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Mindy Elliott with Flynn Judici Government Affairs. Today, on behalf of the Nevada Housing Coalition in support of AB 425, the coalition would first like to thank the committee for sponsoring this important piece of legislation that is encompassed in AB 425. We would like to thank the leadership role of NV Energy and the Governor's Office of Energy, which continues to incentivize Nevadans to expand the utilization of solar. The coalition has provided a letter of support, which is available on Nellis. To paraphrase our support letter, the current 50% rebate has supported 49 projects, many of which were dedicated to affordable housing, which has brought energy savings to their properties and have supported the overall complex financial feasibility in the capital stack. Unfortunately, LICEP is sunsetting, which will greatly hinder the viability of these solar projects for multifamily units. With the passage of AB 425, Nevada affordable housing developers will be positioned to even further share the cost with tenants, as many of you have asked today. In other words, our Nevada families will benefit from a savings on their own utility bill. There are several more reasons why this bill passage is crucial for the affordable housing ecosystem. We have in the audience today, I have Bill Brewer with the Nevada Rural Housing, who's an actual developer and who have actually utilized the solar in some of their projects. So I brought them. They're not testifying, but they're my phone a friend if there are any specific questions that you'd like to ask a Nevada developer. Along with Mr. Brewer is his deputy, Michonne Hurst. We are available for further questions, and we encourage your support of AB 425. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Ms. Elliott. If there's anyone else in support of this measure, Assembly Bill 425 here in Carson City, please feel free to come forward and take the table. In the meantime, we'll go down to Las Vegas. Please feel free to begin when you're ready.
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair and Chair Committee. My name is Reverend Leonard B. Jackson. That's spelled Leonard, Jackson, Jackson. I am the Director of Faith Organizing Alliance, and am here in support of AB 425. Our mission with the Faith Organizing Alliance is to increase civic participation through faith-based and civic organizations within the Las Vegas Valley area in order to advance a community and government that is caring, just, and equitable. Let me refer back to legislation history. Back in 2021, the legislation overwhelmingly passed SB 448, which allows certain apartment builders to participate in the state's metering program. AB 425 would do the exact same thing for all the affordable houses in the state, all of the affordable housing in the state. And nearly 24 states already have this policy in effect. Most affordable housing buildings in Nevada have individually metered units, and each tenant pays their own utility bill. And AB 425 is necessary for those tenants to directly benefit from solar. Otherwise, they have no way to participate. And AB 425 simply says that all types of affordable housing should be able to participate in the state's net metering program. Equity access. Everyone in Nevada deserves the right to benefit from the solar energy. And this is especially true for low-income renters who stand to gain most from utility bill savings. And under current Nevada law and regulations, most affordable housing tenants cannot benefit directly from solar, but high-income residents and luxury condos can.
Thank you,
AB
Mr. Jackson. Would you
425
begin to wrap it up, sir? We're at your 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. AB 425 will assure that the battlefield is leveled and we all succeed in life. Thank you for your time. Be blessed.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Pastor Marlon Anderson. I am the Clean Energy Organizer at Faith Organizing Alliance, and we are in support of AB 425. It is very necessary for the community, and we support it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in Las Vegas wishing to offer testimony and support? Okay, seeing none, BPS, can we move to the phone lines? Is there anyone in support on the phone?
If you would like to testify in support of AB 425, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Hello, my name is Jamarian Williams, and I am the Government Affairs Manager for Western Resource Advocates. Western Resource Advocates is a nonprofit advocacy organization fighting climate change and its impacts to sustain the environment, economy, and people of the West. Western Resource Advocates would like to support Assembly Bill 425, mainly because it will allow low-income renters to gain or to benefit from solar energy in the state of Nevada, which is much needed. AB 425 will also advance solar energy access and equity in our state, and for these reasons, we would like to support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair Brown-May and members of the committee. My name is Eric Jang, ERICJNG, here on behalf of One APIA Nevada, advocating for the fast-growing Asian Pacific Islander community. We are here to ask for your support for AB 425. It addresses two of the most pressing issues we have in our state. First, on affordable housing by lower utility bills, for letting those who need the most for the affordable housing tenants get to participate in net metering, and also confronting climate change by creating more solar energy. And our organization has advocated on the federal side for IRA, and now seeing all its tax savings passing through, we would love to see state changes to take full advantage of those federal incentives and urge the committee to pass AB 425 so Nevadans don't leave savings on the table. And we're 2 weeks away from Earth Day, so thank you again for letting us testify on this bill. We would like to thank Assemblymember Watts for proposing this great incentive. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Gabriela Olmedo, O-L-M-E-D-O. I'm an associate at Advanced Energy United, a business association working to make the energy we use clean, affordable, and reliable. We represent over 100 companies across the diverse advanced energy industry, such as large-scale renewables, geothermal, energy storage, energy efficiency, and solar. I'm calling in to express support for AB 425, the Low Income Solar Act. This bill makes a small change to existing law that translates into a big step forward for accessibility and equity. As we've heard, currently residents of affordable housing are not able to take advantage of the state's solar net metering program because these buildings generally have individually metered units. By allowing individual net metering for only these federally regulated affordable housing units, these low-income renters will be able to benefit from utility bill savings. Low-income people and renters often have the highest energy burden and therefore the most to gain from these savings, but are currently largely unable to access them. By removing this barrier, we can lower energy burdens for those who need it most. This bill is also key to ensuring Nevada is able to take advantage of significant federal funding. There are tax incentives in the Inflation Reduction Act for solar on federally regulated affordable housing that essentially cut the cost in half. But these credits are competitive, with priority given to projects that provide the most direct benefits to tenants. The Low Income Solar Act will ensure Nevada does not lose out on these benefits to the dozens of other states that already have policies like this in place. We're excited to see Nevada join other states leading the way for tenant and shared solar. Thank you for your consideration, and thank you to the committee for this important bill.
Chair, there are no additional callers wishing to testify at this time.
Thank you. And now we'll move into opposition of Assembly Bill 425. If you would like to testify in opposition of this measure, please come up to the table. You may begin when you're ready.
Chair and committee members, Jeremy Newman for the record. I'm here on behalf of IBW Local 396, and we represent thousands of Nevada workers in Southern Nevada. We are here today in opposition of 425. Many of our members are retirees or soon-to-be retirees and are on fixed incomes. The cost shifting that will result from AB 425 will place an unfair financial burden on them and others low-income customers. In addition to the cost shift of AB 425, it will also create unregulated net metering, which creates several concerns for us around safety and consumer protections. These solar projects will likely not be built by our members, and the impact and the quality and safety of these projects will impact the quality and safety of these projects. Our members are trained to industry standards, including industry-leading training on the installation of energy storage. We are also extremely concerned about the vulnerability population because there are no safeguards built into this bill. The landlords can now act as unregulated utilities. For these reasons and many more, the IBW Local 396 is opposed to 425, and it urged the committee to do the same.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. For the record, Danny Thompson. I'm here today representing IBW 1245, who represents the utility workers in Northern Nevada. With all due respect to Chairman Watts, IBW 1245 is strongly opposed to AB 425. After similar legislation was passed in California, it was proven that net metering costs billions of dollars to all customers who don't have rooftop solar. AB 425 lacks oversight and regulatory control over landlords who would now have the authority to act as a utility and provide no guidelines for the proposed equitable distribution of the benefits. The bill also provides zero assurance that these projects will be constructed using qualified workforce. When the community solar bill passed in 2019, there were sureties in the bill that would be constructed with qualified labor, and that the folks could be trained on these projects. None of those great provisions are in this bill. This creates major consumer protection concerns because the quality and safety of the work will be impacted. And the other point I want to make is that since the bill defines these landlords as not acting as utilities, once these systems are set up, the PUC will have no authority to have jurisdiction and regulate how they work and run. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Is there anyone else in opposition here in Carson City? Seeing none, anyone in opposition in Las Vegas? None there. BPS, is there anyone in opposition on the phone lines?
If you would like to testify in opposition to AB 425, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Thomas Bird. I'm president of the Nevada Alliance for Retired Americans. I'm here on behalf of our more than 18,500 members of the Nevada Alliance for Retired Americans, NARA, adamantly opposes this legislation, AB 425. AB 425 will allow unregulated expansion on net metering, which will exacerbate the problems we see coming out of California. The California Public Utility Commission conducted a study on this matter and concluded that net metering costs all ratepayers billions of dollars. Our members live on fixed incomes. We should not have to burden seniors by this cost shift. The bill's language is vague, lacks strong consumer protections. The current language allows for landlord to act as the utility without any oversight. For these reasons and many more, the Nevada Alliance for Retired Americans encourages committees to oppose AB 425. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Before you hang up, would you please say and spell your name for the record? I didn't hear you.
Yes, Thomas Bird, capital Thomas, capital BIRD.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Chair, there are no additional callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. Seeing no others in opposition, we'll move into neutral on this measure, Assembly Bill 425. Is there anyone here to offer testimony in neutral? None in Carson City. Anyone in Las Vegas in neutral? None in Las Vegas. BPS, is there anyone in neutral on the telephone lines?
If you would like to testify neutral for AB 425, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller, please press star 6 to unmute your phone.
Apologies for the technical difficulties. Good afternoon, Vice Chair Brown-May and members of the committee. My name is Marie Steele, Vice President of Integrated Energy Services at NV Energy. I lead a diverse team responsible for NV Energy's clean energy customer programs and services, including energy efficiency, demand response, electric vehicles, battery storage, and renewable energy. The team is also responsible for integrated grid planning and the distributed resource plan, which ensures NV Energy customers and Nevadans benefit from distributed energy resource deployment. Apologies, but I am actually here today in opposition to AB 425 as introduced. With my direct oversight over NV Energy's net metering interconnections and renewable energy programs, I am very concerned about consumer protection for these low-income participants from an unregulated shared net metering system. And after discussion this afternoon, I'm now even more concerned about how the usage of a battery system would impact benefit allocations. We welcome the opportunity to work with the chair, presenters, stakeholders in the committee on the bill to work on our shared objectives of supporting our low-income customers, renewable energy development, and federal funding utilization. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Ms. Steele.
Chair, there are no additional callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. We do have one more gentleman in Las Vegas. Please go ahead when you're ready.
My name is Tony Simmons, Tony Simmons. I'm a professional engineer in Nevada. I'm authorized to design the systems you're anticipating it. Until the legal controversy alluded to in Senate Bill 2019 Senate Bill 300 has been resolved, I can't design anything. We need to get that controversy alluded to in Senate Bill 300 needs to be addressed before we do anything else. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Chair Watts, feel free to offer your closing comments when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Howard Watts. Thank you again for your time, for your consideration, for your very thoughtful questions. NV Energy has reached out to me. I look forward to ongoing conversations with them to look for opportunities to address some of their concerns and strengthen some of the language of the bill. Unfortunately, some of the opponents from my friends in labor left, but I will commit to reaching out and following up with them learn more about their concerns and figure out opportunities to address that. I will also allow Mr. Lassiter to speak briefly, but I just wanted to touch on a few of the things that I heard. One of the things that came up in the opposition is the claim that this is unregulated, or that that this will be turning landlords into utilities. And again, that is certainly not the intent. The framework that's envisioned in this bill is that the PUC is going to have a level of oversight in both developing the framework and then helping make sure that any of these projects conform with the intent that was discussed during the bill presentation. And again, that's going to involve a whole diverse range of stakeholders, including the Bureau of Consumer Protection and the Attorney General's office. And so if anyone that has concerns about that and would like to bring forward suggestions to tighten up some of that language, I certainly would welcome. There was information brought up about rate shifting. A lot of that was focused on California. Understanding that we've had net metering in its current form in place since 2017 and continue to be deployed and have not seen a significant increase in customer rates. The one thing that is increasing all of our bills right now is an over-reliance on fossil fuels. And so, but if the opponents can bring forward some information about what any projected cost impact has been and how adding this small additional group to the pool of folks who can potentially benefit from net metering may increase any of those issues, I would certainly welcome that and take it into consideration. Additionally, there was mention about issues with labor standards, construction standards. Again, I'll note this follows the exact same format as existing net metering for single-family residences. One of the benefits is that a project being developed at a multifamily scale, there is going to be more sophistication from that building owner in managing some of those things. So that, I think, helps address some of the consumer protection issues. Additionally, and I don't know enough about this, about all the different federal affordable housing programs, but some of those may actually have some standards around construction and other labor standards within those. And it would certainly be the intent to make sure that I think these projects, particularly in new developments, but also in others that have been subject to those standards, are held to the same standards. So I would hope I can work with our brothers and sisters in labor to identify and flesh out those issues and see where the opportunities exist to make sure it aligns both with the overall net metering system that we do have in place, but again, where appropriate, where some of those federal affordable housing programs are putting higher standards in place, where we can make sure that we're honoring those as well. And finally, there was concern, and it was mentioned around some of the standards that were in place with the expanded solar access program. And again, while I applaud that, one project has been developed in Southern Nevada since that bill was passed in 2019. So I want to make sure that we're able to get these resources out to the community. And with that, if Mr. Lassiter has anything to add, I'll turn it over to him to offer any brief closing remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity. Stephen Lassiter with Sunrun. I think that the chairman summarized it perfectly. Obviously, no one in this room needs to be reminded that Nevada is not California. Solar deployment is much different in California, and the CPUC did its own study. It has much more solar. It was determined that, yes, it has impacted rates there. But I'll point out that the Public Utility Commission in California is the very government entity that provides the state incentive for solar on affordable housing. So if there was this really egregious cost shift going on, you would imagine that the state would not be simultaneously incentivizing these types of installations that we're talking about. In terms of, building owners beginning to operate as utilities, I just want to remind everyone, this is no different from SB 448, which the legislature passed almost overwhelmingly last session, which allowed for these types of installations on multifamily housing with one electric meter. So I don't know if that same concern was raised about SB 448, but that legislation is now law and passed overwhelmingly. I'll leave it there, but thank you all so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Lester. Chair Watts. With that, we'll close the hearing on Assembly Bill 425, and I will turn the gavel back over to our chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I probably could have just let you close this out, but we do have one item left on our agenda, which is public comment. Anyone wishing to make public comment, either here in Carson City or down in Las Vegas, please do come forward. You'll have 2 minutes. Please clearly state and spell your name before beginning. So with that, anyone wishing to make public comment here? Sir, in Las Vegas, would you like to make public comment? Not seeing that at this time. It looks like no. Broadcast Production Services, do we have anyone wishing to provide public comment by phone?
If you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to provide public comment at this time.
All right. Thank you all very much for your time. We will have hopefully a significant work session on Tuesday. We are adjourned.